What's cracking is your man, Pastor Ferguson, and it's the Safe House Podcast. And we are still online right now. Um, Good to be in the virtual space. Patrick Mitchell was cracking.
What's going on?
Not much, man. Just here, so I don't get fined.
Thank you, Marshawn. Safe House Podcast every Wednesday, 6:30 on all of our platforms. If you are already in the chat, let us know because, as always, we checking out everything. As always, Patty, we are praying for your dad already. Surgery on tomorrow. We got you. Lifting up Mr. Logan in prayer. It's just been that season for some crazy reason.
My Aunt Ruth in the hospital.
I just saw her today.
Okay, good.
She was in good spirits.
As always.
We had a good time, a good conversation. So praying for everybody like normal. Like I said, hit the chat, let us know that you're in here with us. And of course, let us know of anything that needs to be lifted. Sister Crystal, good to see you in here on the podcast tonight. Due to the meltdown in Columbus, we're finally not under ice or snow, and it's melting by leaps and bounds. We'll be back in the building on Sunday at 10 a.m. for worship, and I'm glad to be able to see folk on Sunday. Hope to see you in the building. If for some reason you can't make it into the building, we always stream at 10 a.m. for worship every Sunday. I think that's all mine. Now, see, it's that stuff right there that makes me always worry about how far can I really go in the life of the United Methodist Church? Am I really going to make it? Am I going to make it without choking anybody? I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be recorded. It will be televised.
Definitely not a revolution. So we'll be out there. See, people come onto this podcast thinking that we're gonna be all extra serious, and we pretty serious, but we gotta start off light because life's too heavy. So 10 a.m. for worship, 6:30 for the podcast every week, unless we announce it otherwise. Good to see Brother Tony on and everything like that right there. So God is faithful. Mitchell, open us up in prayer if you don't mind, and then we'll see how this conversation goes tonight. Because we never fully stay within what we plan.
Yeah, I'm looking for the comments today. I'm looking forward to the comments.
Let's see how it goes. But Mitchell, you open us in prayer. We appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for just, again, an opportunity for us to gather. We just ask that in this season, you just continue to give us the strength to keep running, Lord, and just continue to show us the path that you would have us run along, and help us to do it all to your glory. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, Baby Joker is the producer today.
Whoa, you right.
And look, already Mitchell had to get up because he's going through all kind of things. You're going to have to, trying to figure out what's going to
close the door, keep the pets out.
There we go. See, that's a good thing about live stuff. You catch everything. See, my dog has decided to lay down like a good girl, and she's chilling, so it's all right. So,
and mine's apparently not squeaking toys.
Praise the Lord.
Because apparently that happened last week, and I just ignored it.
So last week was more testimonial. It was more introspective, and I didn't really go all the way in, as I would say, but it was more
today.
It was more of a release point, but I think today we got to get into text and some context a little bit more today. So we're running toward freedom on this episode. We're still dealing with the Hebrews 12 scripture, but we got to kind of reframe some stuff. And I would suggest that if you're on with us, it would be good for you to have Hebrews 11 and Hebrews 12 nearby. Um, One of the things I was reading in chapter 11, people in church life, if you grew up in a black church, um, we would call chapter 11 the Hall of Faith, like a Hall of Fame, right? And you see all this list. Once you get beyond, the first couple verses, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. That's English Standard. Um, King James apologist. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Once you get beyond that first verse, for by it the people of old received their commendation. By faith we understood that the universe was created by the word of God, so that what is seen was made out of things that are visible. By faith, then you start running it down. By faith, Abel. By faith, Enoch. By faith, by faith, Noah. By faith, dot 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 dot. By faith, your mama, and by faith, your daddy, and by faith, everybody, mama, and everybody, daddy. Right? I'm kind of right. Just just somebody say, your mama is in chapter 11 by faith. That's how it lay out, right? That's how it lays out. You just going all through that thing. You're hearing about Abraham, you're hearing about Jacob, you're hearing about, Sarah, you're hearing about all these different people, right? Just running down a list. But here's in 13 is an interesting transition in chapter 11. These all died in faith, not having received the things promised, but having seen them and greeted them from afar, and having acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles on earth. Literally talking about people that by faith they were doing all these different things, but all those before verse 13 died not receiving what was promised. That's interesting, right? Like, for people speak thus, make it clear that they are seeking a homeland. If they had been thinking of that land from which they had gone out, they would have had the opportunity to return. But as it is, they desire a better country, that is a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city. Right? Here we go. By faith, Abraham was tested, offered up Isaac. By faith, Jacob, when dying, blessed each of his sons. Bless each of the sons of Joseph, bowing in worship over the head of his staff. By faith, Joseph, at the end of his life, made mention of the exodus of the Israelites, gave direction concerning his bones. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents because they saw the child was beautiful. They were afraid of the king's edict. By faith, Moses again grew up, be called son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God than enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. You got all these different things. By faith, he left Egypt, being afraid of the anger of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. By faith, he kept the Passover, sprinkled the blood, so that the destroyer of the firstborn might not touch them. By faith, they crossed the Red Sea. And then you get into the walls of Jericho. By faith, Rahab, the prostitute, did not perish with those who were disobedient because she welcomed the spy. And then the writer of Hebrews said, if I had more time, I would talk about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, and Samuel, the prophets, and the prophets whose faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, were made strong out of weakness, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to flight. Women received back their dead by resurrection. Some were tortured, refused to accept release so they might rise again to a better life. All this stuff, right? Others suffered. They were stoned, sawed. They were sewn into. They were sawed in two, killed by the sword. They went about in skins of sheep and goats, destitute, afflicted, mistreated, of whom the world was not worthy, wandering about in deserts and in dens and in caves of the earth. All these, though committed through their faith, did not receive what was promised. Since God had provided something better for us, that apart from us, they should not be made perfect. Interesting. All that faith, but the contradiction is they didn't receive everything. Right? And then we arrive at 12. Therefore, since we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. And have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves and chastises every son who he receives. It is for discipline that you have to endure. That's crazy. I went too far, but at the same time, I don't think I did. Think about this for a second. We literally scanned through a whole chapter talking about faith and people that had great faith. But the writer suggests that all those people with great faith did not obtain the promise. The specific people that were listed, not others, but the specific people that were listed, did not obtain promise. But then transitions and says, therefore, since we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. So there are people, if you transition, that didn't make it, but they now are witnessing us. We have the opportunity to obtain, but we got to do what? Lay aside the weight and the sin that holds on to us. And we have to realize that the race is an endurance race. Freedom, true freedom, requires us to have endurance. Freedom of mind, freedom within ourselves, the whole nine. We cannot just say, oh, I'm free. I'm free just because I say it. No, it takes recognizing that you've had to endure some things to arrive at a point where you really see what's at the end of the journey. And sometimes the end of the journey is not going to be obtained like we think. And yet we're commended to believe that God is able. That's tough. That's tough. Well, God, you promised that you would never leave nor forsake. I've seen that. You promised something great for me, and I'm still waiting. But the suggestion is there's the possibility that what is promised is not going to be obtained in my day. Imagine the civil rights movement. We're pressing towards something, wanting to have the freedoms and the right to do what we need to do and want to do. And we're fighting all the way. But you have so many people that didn't get to see certain things in their day. They didn't get to witness it. They didn't get to witness the continuation of the Voting Rights Act. That even though it was set up a certain way, they didn't get to witness the continuation of the ratifying of it constantly every 4 to 10, like I think it was like every 5 to 10 years. It used to come before, and nobody ever really talked about it because they thought when it happened, it was done. It could be repealed at any time. People have been trying to find loopholes to repeal it forever. And here we are in a day we're probably closer than we've ever been to trying to get rid of certain things, right? There are people that are trying their best to experience what it is to be free from certain levels of bondage. They're trying to escape, but they're not really ready to endure and go further. They're not prepared for what that means or what that represents. And I'm wondering, when we begin to unpack Hebrews 12, 1 and 2 from the perspective of endurance, when we think about who's watching us, it makes me wonder, are we in a state now where we can begin to talk about what it means to function in faith, function in living in such a way where our movement and our progression is going to be about not being passive, but being energized by who has gone before us, being energized by the witness of those that have come ahead of us? Or are we still going to just continue to wonder in our heads, do we even have a chance? Or do we stand a chance?
Well, I, I feel like this is hard because I feel like Hebrews 11, I almost take issue with, almost because I feel like it diminishes, like to say that Abraham didn't receive the promise when what Abraham was promised, Abraham got. You know what I mean? That's hard for me. Like if God says I'm gonna give you a child, and that child is going to, eventually lead to you being the father of, count the stars in the sky, right? Count, whatever. Um, for the author of Hebrews to say this person didn't receive the promise, or to say that the folks who inherited, or who walked into the promised land didn't receive the promise, like that feels almost like what they were told they were pursuing is what they got. Even if it took time, like, am I misinterpreting that? Like, because I feel like for the generation after them to tell the story, it feels like you wouldn't want to diminish what they did receive from God in terms of a promise.
I think that when you bring up Abraham, for instance, you're like, you will be the father of many nations, right? If you take the critique of Hebrews, he didn't get to witness the multiplication. He became that beyond his death, not while he was living.
Sure.
So it's about perspective, right? He did have a son, but the bigger picture was, and your name will be great, and you will be the father of many nations, right? There's nothing that I've read, unless I've missed it, where Abraham saw his grandchildren.
Right.
He saw his kids, but he didn't see his grandchildren, right? Whether it was from his quote unquote illegitimate child or the legitimate child. He never got to see the next generation. He didn't get to see or witness how Jacob and Esau began to multiply, right? He didn't get to see how Ishmael began to multiply. So he did not get to witness the fulfillment from that perspective of that promise. His name only became great after he was gone. Moses led him to the promised land, but he didn't get to go in.
Mm-hmm.
He brought them to the edge, but they didn't make it in. There are all types of ways to look at that, right? And you're right, it doesn't diminish what they were able to achieve and gain. It doesn't it doesn't diminish that one bit. However, it means to us then, what does it mean to have a fulfilled promise? Or what does it mean to keep on pushing when there is the possibility you may not get to the end of the story?
Sure.
So it's something to consider.
So then how do we I don't know how to ask the question, but you said something about perspective.
Mhm.
And I think that like how do we make sure that we're properly celebrating the small victories for the multiplication that they can be, you know, I don't know. I don't like the small victories lead to bigger things. So like how do we put those into their proper perspective, not only for the folks who came before us, but then for the people who come after us, if that makes sense.
I think it's the I think we I think we have these types of conversations. Number one, we have to consider we have to consider how do we really move in faith? How do we function in a manner that causes us to be able to look at, okay, let me say it this way. Let me say it this way. I see Claire having more people in the pews engaged in ministry, so on and so forth, right? No matter what it is right now, I see over 100 people. I see more people engaged in ministry. I see people engaging themselves in outreach, in multimedia, in all these different things, right? That's what I see. But there's another piece to that. What do I have to do to get towards that end? I got to have faith that there are going to be people that are going to come. I got to have faith and work my faith, because remember, we say faith is what? Substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen, right? Without faith, it's impossible to please God. And faith without works is what? Is dead, right? So I got to put some muscle behind it, right? I have to look back, and people don't even realize I do it this much. I got to look back at Grace Stewart in 1917 and think about Claire 109 years removed from that. What would, as a part of the cloud, as a part of the witness, she's a part of the witness, right? She's a part of the cloud. But I think about what she did. She didn't have social media, but she found a way to what? Draw children, draw people, draw pastoral leadership, pull on those that had the juice to be able to do all kinds of different things. You know what I mean? So there are a lot of different ways for us to move and to see how things are progressing, right? There are ways for us to see how God is at work and how our faith can be exercised. But a lot of it is on us to actually think about the cloud and then think about our role in running. They wait. What is it? What? How does it go? Someone walked so you could run. You know
You
what I
know
mean?
what my you know what my
Yeah.
little quote I'll be saying
Yeah. Go
is
ahead.
the grandfather walked to work so his son can ride to work. He rode to work so his son can drive to work. He drove to work so he could be driven to work. And he makes his son walk to work to restart the cycle. Because after you're driven to work, there's no other level above that one. Because now you're being chauffeured. So it's kind of like you have to be able to appreciate the previous level. But once you're at the top level, you have to go back to appreciate it again.
Absolutely. I mean, so in this instance, people can talk about the past as much as they want. You know what I'm saying? And they can talk about it in a perspective that they desire, right? But what are you doing now? How are you becoming innovative, right? In 1917, a black woman that didn't have voting rights found a way to be innovative to draw children from the street and make sure they had something that made sense, right? And when I look at what she did and the story that people continue to lean into, my job, not as a pastor, but as a part of the legacy, is to see what is my role in innovation? What is my role in making sure that faith is exercised before the people? And that's why we have streaming. That's why we have a podcast. That's why we have all these different modes of doing things now, right? Because I look back and I'm like, that was innovative in 1917. But how do we take that and bring it forward? We still have to be what? Innovators and work having a working active faith. If you're not having a working active faith, everybody watching that wants to cheer you on, they ain't cheering, they're just looking. We think that preserving what has existed is enough, and that's not enough. We think that, and if you broaden it, not just in church terms, but in life terms, there are so many people right now that say, I've said it, you've said it probably in private, but I'll say it in public. I never thought that we would ever be in a position where we would regress as a nation into the stuff that we're dealing with now, right?
Mhm.
People were concerned about preserving, but then now we've gone from preservation to regression. And people don't even want to acknowledge that there's regression. They think it's just going to all work out. But now they're seeing you can't just allow things to just exist. You have to be on the edge of moving a thing forward. Otherwise, if you put it in the hands of people that don't care, then you're going to see the result of what happens when that occurs, right? I'm gonna trust you. I'm gonna trust you, and I'm gonna put it all in your hands, and I'm gonna trust you to do something when it's on me to make something happen. God has given me plenty to make a thing happen. Otherwise, what am I talking this stuff for? And it's not about me or it's not about us as individuals, but it's about us recognizing we have responsibility.
Mhm.
We almost, okay, in one way, we finally kill the notion of we finally kill the notion of tradition as us being punked by those that have been dead. The truth is their lives have been repurposed by people who don't want to move ahead. People that have gone on wanted to go further. There is nobody that I've ever heard that said they wanted anybody that came after them to keep things the same. They wanted it to be further. We can talk in generalities. They wanted to go further, even if it's a certain style. They wanted to go further, though. But we have settled for what we were comfortable with, not realizing it was dying on the vine as we were settling. It was dying as we were not exercising faith. And so now, what they could not see in fulfillment, we've let go by the wayside, and we've become like some of them who said we couldn't have it back then. And there's only a few of us that said from back then we could have it then, and we're still living now with the opportunity to get it. But we got to be able to run. And if we're not ready to run, if we're not ready to be cheered on by what the past and what the witnesses have actually said, it can be done. What are we doing?
So, and I want to, maybe this is a stupid question, but like,
it is.
I'm hearing you, shut up. I'm hearing you talk about this balancing act of like the witness, the legacy and the faith.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we get stuck in that, like, well, I want to do this for my mama, or I want to do this for my grandfather, you know what I mean? And it's like, how do we not get stuck in the historical legacy and making sure that Christ is still at the center of it, rather than our desire to do right by the individual who came before us? Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes complete sense. But
I mean, it does. I mean, there's a motivation, right? So there's a motivation that should exist too. You know what I'm saying?
It should work both ways though. Like, so I have this thing, and I heard it from another Black person a long time ago, where they said, we as a culture tend to pass money backwards, which is not how things should work. You should always be looking to pass whatever it is forwards. So appeasing the past doesn't always work out in your favor. So like, we always talk about, like, I'm using money as a term because it's just easier to talk about a physical thing. We always talk about generational wealth. Same thing is like passing traditions down. If we're so focused on passing things and appeasing the past, then we're never actually looking forward. You get what I'm saying? And if your job is to make the people before you be happy, the best way to do that is to make it easier for the next group to keep moving forward. If we're so stuck in, well, I do it my way and I want to keep doing it my way, it doesn't work. Because like what's happening now, you can look at this current generation where you remember the American dream, get a house, all the stuff, this, that, the other. And the idea of that is like gone as a tradition for most people. It's just so far-fetched now. So like now everybody has to figure out how to do it differently. But then you have older people, it's like, just buckle down, work harder. It's like, but that doesn't work for us anymore. And so it's like, well, we gotta find a new way to do things, and then we gotta build our solution. And then when we get to the next group, we can tell them what worked for us, and that doesn't mean it's gonna work again. Because like Pastor said, you have to keep evolving. If we keep trying to do the same things over and over every generation, we're not really progressing anywhere. We're just maintaining a status quo. So, I mean, I'm not really sure how to answer your question. Like, it's a weird balancing act. I get what you're saying, because to me, I see it's not tradition. What was the words we used? Wisdom and no, what was it?
it was legacy.
Legacy.
And yeah.
And like maintaining a legacy is also just how people view something. Like, if you're a family of pastors and you keep being a pastor, it's great. But then if one kid goes a different direction, that doesn't mean that he doesn't still carry that trait with him. He might just do it differently. You have a family of bakers, and one's like, I want to bake, like, but they still might cook. They still might do it on their own, and they might be able to pass it on to the next group. It's I don't know. I think we put a lot of pressure, like the pastor said, into like maintaining something that someone else created instead of trying to recreate it in our own image. I don't know if that's the right way of putting that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think there's like an imposter syndrome aspect to it, where like like I'm I'm not gonna be as great as you know Martin Luther King. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna be as great as Frederick Douglass. I'm not. So like I think we do that thing where it's like because I can't see myself achieving
That height?
whatever, yeah, then like we allow that to then diminish all of the day to day little things um, that we can do. You know what I mean? Like I was talking to my therapist today just about like just the building the tiny habits type of thing, right? Like
Brick by brick, the brick by brick mindset. Yeah.
and like even when you're dopamine starved, you find something that can give you a little bit, and then you build off of that little bit to. But I feel like not everybody's going to be the greatest preacher. Not everybody's going to be the greatest usher. Not everybody's going to be, you know, whatever, right? But I think it's that faith thing where it's like, God, I'm not going to do this perfectly, but I know that in the midst of it, you can do something with it.
Mm-hmm.
That I think like when we can do that collectively, that's how you like start movements, right? But I think we all just say, well, it's just me and I'm out here doing it by myself, not realizing that like I'm trying to figure that out, you're trying to figure that out. 17 other people in our congregation are trying to figure it out. There's a church down the street that's trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? And so it's like
Yeah.
we silo ourselves into our own individual faith, and then we don't take into account not only the cloud that came before us, but the folks who are in our midst right now, where we can encourage them and they can encourage us, and like then not manifest, but like it's the catalyst for change to happen, and for people's lives to be affected in a positive way.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think a lot of that also is just like I think we talked about yesterday. I mean, last week was about ego. A lot of it, ego is a problem that we deal with a lot when it just comes to tradition, legacy, and like moving forward. Like, ego and pride. I don't know if I'm gonna say them as the same exact thing. I don't feel that they're the exact same, but there is something about that. So like if say CJ for example, because Charles is
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
and CJ's like, my grandfather, he was a pastor, my dad's a pastor, and so there's this weird peer pressure that never existed that he has created to try to keep a tradition going. That no one told him it was a tradition, but he makes it his own tradition. It's like, yo, I gotta be like them because I idolize them instead of
Go ahead.
instead of him like I might idolize them. This might be what they do best, but what can I take from what they do and do it my way?
And
Eh,
and and I'm glad you're bringing that type of thing up because that part that part we have responsibility while we're living to kind of set a different tone, right? I demonstrate faith, and even in the contrasting of legacy, right? I demonstrate a certain thing while explaining you are not subject to this, which then means what is the real legacy? You see what I mean? Like if you take into consideration, I brought it up from a church standpoint, right? But I also brought it up, but you brought it up from a family standpoint. There's another part of his family tree that's like straight music, right? Not preaching. He's leaning that way because it's something that he desires to do, right? But I also have said to my son, for God's sake, go and do what you want to do. Do what really speaks to you, because if you do that and you do that well, if you do that, then there's great opportunity for you to expand a different legacy, a different level of legacy. Like legacy has many different forms, right? Is it about the specific thing, or is it about something else? So
Oh, you okay?
Well, and that sort of makes me think about like Paul, when he's having to constantly talk to people about what it means to adhere to the law. Well, these folks don't want to get circumcised, and these folks don't want to adhere to, the dietary restrictions and this, that, and the third. And it's like, what is the like? Yes, there are laws that do require our adherence, but at the end of the day, we're also talking about not just not just basing the entirety of our faith on the adherence to the law, and about like expanding it into how how you treat your neighbor, how you
Right.
engage with the rest of the world. And like, just because I eat something that's unclean doesn't mean, or quote unquote unclean, doesn't mean that I can't be a part of this community. Because like Paul said, it's not what goes into the man, it's what comes out of him. And so like, you can stay trying to be perfect, but like, you can go away. And Jesus said, I ain't come to, I came to fulfill the law, or I don't
Right.
know, I'm probably quoting it right, but like, y'all are so stuck in trying to do it this one way, when like the beauty of the human experience and the beauty often of our faith is that like it's more dynamic than that. Like there's so many different, it's like so many different
Yeah.
ways that light can refract out of that prism. You know what I mean? Like, and it can look all different types of ways, and it can manifest in all different types of ways, and it can affect people in all different types of ways. But that doesn't, just because you are sort of you know moving in that different direction, doesn't mean that you are somehow dishonoring what came before you.
Before.
And
Right.
and I think that's where we got to play that game a little bit, right? Because some people do feel that like, if you change this,
You don't love me. You
Yeah.
you hate me now. It's like, that's not how that works.
And
It's
it's
just
like,
like go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what you're talking about is something like, if you got a family of 10 people. I mean, like, you got 2 parents, 8 kids, right? Who in this economy? Now I'm thinking about it. That's tough. All of them grew up in the same house, but they all had different experiences. You know what I'm saying? Like, even with just having 2, like we have Sam, Ivana, and 2 very different experiences, 2 very different kids, same parents, different times of having the parents, different ages, different physical abilities, but yet they both want to appease us. When I say appease, you know what I mean? Like they want us to be proud of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you know, Ivana's like, I want to be a teacher. And Chris is like, sometimes don't do it. Because Ivana goes to her school and she'd be like, these kids is crazy. And then you got Sam and he likes math and all stuff, but you know, I love sports. And he was like, this ain't for me, Dad. And I had to be cool with it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but like you're saying, they still want to appease us, but that doesn't mean they have to do what we do to appease us. Like I had, you know, my cousin Elijah and Keith.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Keith and his son Elijah, even little Keith, I think they both really wanted to appease their dad. They wanted to play the sports like he did. They wanted to do all the things he did. And then there was a point where they both was like, I don't like it. And they just stopped. And then they just figured out I gotta do what's best for me. And as long as I don't call you to ask you for money, we should be straight.
Well, and I even think about sort of the inverse of that. And Pastor, maybe you can help me out with this. But like, is it Samuel? No, it's Eli
Mm-hmm.
who had the sons who weren't handling their business in whatever way, so that legacy of the prophet could continue. But even in that sense, even if that gets taken away from you, you still don't necessarily lose that desire to honor your parent. And you still have to then find a way to not just honor your parent, but live into the gifts and the expectations that God has put upon you. Does that make sense?
So that kind of ties into the next part. You know what I'm saying? If you think about it, we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. We have to lay aside things, right? So we have to lay aside what? What do we have to lay aside? It says weight and sin in the text, but think about what the weight is. You got to lay aside expectations. You got to lay aside, you know, unspoken expectations. You got to lay aside, you know, possibly commonality and all these other things, so that you can then run with endurance the race that is set before you. Everybody's race ain't the same, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at track, you look at swimming, all these different things, right? You do not put a distance runner in a sprint. No. And you don't put a sprinter in a distance race, because they are developed for a certain type of run. You don't put a 50-meter freestyler in a 1,500-meter backstroke. You see what I'm saying? Everybody's race is different. Mm-hmm. However, how we go about our business can be the same, right? I can be business-like, but I focus in on preaching, teaching, this, that, and the other. You, like Patrick, I can't do what you do when it comes to running this, right?
Sure you can. No, go ahead. Yeah. I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
You know what I'm saying? You have a certain race, I have a certain race. But if we're both running it like we should, right? I prep myself, I do the things I need to do, right? On my end, you're doing what you need to do, and you're running, and you're like, I need to figure out how to make this thing better. I need to figure out how to work this thing out. We were having issues with audio, and it really wasn't a matter of your end or my end per se, but it was like, just try a different browser, try a different thing, right?
Yeah.
Try to do all, you see what I mean? It's like when you're running your race, it helps me run mine. It doesn't mean that I'm going to do what you do, but I've learned how to run the race that's before me. If I've prepared, you know, through study, through this, through that, then I'm doing my part, which then while you're doing your part, while Mitchell's doing his part, then all of a sudden we got this podcast, right? We learn how to run with endurance in the lanes that are before us. I think the thing we haven't always done is say to people, what is the lane that God has given you? Rather, we give people undue pressure to run in lanes and run in races that ain't for them. And so they gas out when they weren't built to be a distance runner. You still gotta have endurance to run sprints. You do. If you're gonna run the 100 and 200, you're running a bunch of them over time. You have to run some distance to work on what? Air and everything else, but then you got to work on what? Technique. You got to make sure that you're coming out of the blocks right way. You got to make sure that you're able to get to your top speed at a certain point, and it has to be instinctive. So you got to do it so many times that by the time you get into the real thing, you're ready. You can stay in your lane. You ain't got to move here. You ain't got to move there. You can go from any kind of start and make it happen. We try to have endurance for things we're not built for. And we create environments, and we have to, in church, we got to own this. We create environments where people think they have to do a certain thing a certain way in order to be effective. And we kill them before they have a chance. That's why you got a whole lot of preachers pastoring churches, and they ain't got no business being in nobody's pulpit. Not because they don't have a call, but because somebody said to them one day, I heard you at a luncheon and you sounded really good. Don't mean they know how to deal with theology. They just got a good voice.
Yeah, a lot of this is like what I said earlier. A big ego play. Kind of like what you just said about getting the audio to work right. Mm-hmm. If you were stubborn enough, you'd be like, I'm gonna make it work with what I got. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens to a lot of people, though. Is, you got somebody, I'm gonna do it this way because this is the way this person did it, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and then you become miserable because it's like, well, why am I doing this? I don't even like this anymore. But you're doing it because you want to make sure that other person's happy with how you're doing something. You're looking for some artificial approval that has a timeline on it.
Yeah.
Versus doing it because you
with God sometimes.
Yeah, that's why kind of why I brought it up. Where like he could be telling you to do something, and you're like, "Nah, I'm gonna do it this way because this is how I've always done it." And then you're so stuck in this loop that you're in, instead of just stepping off for a second. We become hamsters. All of us do. I'm not gonna lie. We get used to doing something one way forever. And it's just like, it's easier to keep the course than it is to just step off the hamster wheel and then just look at the wheel and be like, should I get back on this, or can I go over there? Mm-hmm. Instead of worrying about the person behind me that told me to get on this wheel.
Well, and I think about, and we talk about this on the podcast a lot, I think about Elijah, where, he's basically like, God, I'm tired, Joe. Like, this has just become more than more than what I think it needs to be. And like, and obviously when you've got the weight of the monarchy pursuing you, because of your actions and this, that, and the third, like, it becomes a lot. But I don't know that a lot of us have the confidence to be able to say, hey, God, you put me in this position and I did the best that I could with it. And like you said, Pastor, like, I'm tapped out. Like I've reached the end of whatever I have, because I think that we all feel like, and I do this all the time, where it's like, well, if if God has put me in this position, then God is going to find a way to make me work in this position, to make it work with me in this position. When like that transition aspect is just as important as that period where you are in it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I feel like the wear and tear that happens, we don't necessarily know how to identify it as it's happening and as it's weighing on.
And so, and then if we're dealing with what's weighing on us, right? And we're dealing with the fact that we have to endure in order to get to wherever we're supposed to get, then this part becomes a little bit deeper, looking to Jesus, right? Now, when you look to Jesus, you're looking to Jesus not to go down the road that Jesus went down, but you're looking to Jesus who endured testing, trial, trial and error. You know what I'm saying? Went to the cross, was shamed, but then after it's all said and done, he's sitting at the right hand of the throne of God, right? If I'm going to get to the end of this thing, I have to look at how Jesus navigated his space. That's what the writer is suggesting. If I look to someone who knew how to endure all the things that would come with the journey that he was on, right? Then I need to take the lessons, not necessarily the path, the lessons. We've talked about it a million times. There's always somebody that we look to as an example of achieving a thing and how they made it through, right? So when we look to those people and we look to those examples, we're looking to them in a way where it's like, okay, they got there, but it came with a price. And I have to get into my mind, there's going to be some cost to this. There's going to be something along the way where I have to work around this thing, whether it's personal history, whether it's coming from a long line of whoever and whatever, whether it's whatever it is. I have to figure out how to make it through. How did Jesus make it through? Like if you sum it up, like if you sum up Jesus's life, you um, take out the whole coming down from heaven piece, virgin birth piece, and get to the natural stuff for a second. Grew up in the hood, right? Mama was young. He wasn't his daddy's child, right? All kind of stuff surrounding that, right? Everybody knew he wasn't Joseph's baby, but it didn't matter to Joseph, right? That's that whole stepchild dynamic, right? He gets older, he has siblings, but he started ministering. His siblings called him crazy for what he was doing because he was just gone all the time. And then he started questioning everything. Who's my family? For those that do the will of my father. Ain't that crazy? He's like, I can't even let family get in the way of what I'm doing. That's literally what he said. I can't let DNA get in the way of what I'm doing. I got a goal, I got a goal and objective and a purpose. So I gotta almost move that out the way because they're calling me crazy anyway, but they don't understand. And no matter how much I say, it's still not gonna get it. Mama knew, but his brother, they ain't. And then, just as a side note, what must it be like to be the brother of Jesus? That whole dude restocking a bar based off of water and a prayer. What kind of, you know what I mean?
I'm not even allowed to be my mama's favorite. I'm not. It's not even. I done lost that one off rip.
Right. You able to feed 5,000? You able to feed thousands of people off of 2 fish, 5 loaves of bread just off of a prayer? Come on, man. You ain't matching that. What you got going on? You feel what I'm saying? Like, how do you work that out? So yeah, you're gonna be like, my man's is crazy. I know they showing up for him, but he must be crazy doing all this stuff. He keeping up an itinerary, he keeping up with all these people, and he keep on going from place to place talking all this stuff. He got people following him everywhere. He gotta be a nut. That's literally what they said. And he said, I'm not even gonna let family deter me. Running with patience, running with endurance, right? He kept on and it was lonely. You don't hear a whole lot of, if you read scripture, you don't hear a whole lot of him going back home all the time, hanging out with his folks. You know what I mean? He was hanging out with 12 dudes from all different backgrounds, more than his own family. He was going into the wilderness by himself to try to reset. He was on boats trying to sleep in the middle of storms. He was doing all these different things, right? That's a lonely kind of place. When your family don't get you, when other people don't get you, when they say that nothing good can come from the hood, you know what I'm saying? What good can come? Can anything good come out of Nazareth? That's literally saying, can anything good come from the hood? We know where you came from. We know where you grew up. Don't matter where you were born. We know where you grew up, and you came from the projects. Nothing good's ever come out of there. And he had to still do what he did. He was healing the sick, raising the dead, doing all this stuff, and he still got killed.
So, and let me hit you with the hypothetical real quick, because Jesus knew what the cost was going to have to be, right? Like he knew that this is going to be lonely, and it doesn't end well in the physical sense for me, right?
Right. Right.
But like, and Jesus went the route that Paul also went, right? Where Paul's like, if it were up to me, you would all be single because he, but so many people in ministry, whether that's pastors or otherwise, don't go that route. And so like when you talk about counting the cost, in the same way that Abraham's legacy doesn't come until after Abraham is gone, is there not a generational trauma aspect to that cost when you're not able to engage with your family the way that you otherwise would, when you are in danger and your family's in danger, and then your children are growing up having to absorb whatever it means to really be truly about that life? You know what I mean? Like, how do you sort of, maybe mitigate's not the right word, because like sometimes it's just out of your hands, but like, what does that cost look like in an intergenerational sense?
You gotta have some real conversation, man. Let's let's put it out here. There are three black men on this podcast. Okay. Two of us are black fathers and husbands. All three of us are at the intersection of being black men in a world where no matter what we do, no matter how well we do it, we're always on a hit list. And for those that are watching and listening, I know that people will try to come up with a million different ways to try to circumvent that comment, but that's the truth. Every time we walk out the door, every time we get up, get in a car, either go to work, go to a store, or just drive down the street, we are subject to anything happening. We just are. And I am not blowing it up. We had the conversations with our family members years ago when we were younger. You do this, you do that. Even teaching the people about how to comply with a cop don't even work no more, because now we're in a world where it ain't about complying and doing this and doing that and knowing your rights. People are trying to violate your rights anyway, right? We know this about ourselves. And so we already have the traumatic conversations with generations based upon the environment in which we come from. But the thing is, people don't take the time to have honest conversation And that's why we have churches that are always thinking towards pie in the sky rather than how do we learn how to effectively move. There are days when it's going to be great. There are days when it's going to be like the perfect, ice cream sundae. You feel me? Where you just know is every flavor you want, it's every topping you want, and the ice cream don't melt right away. It's literally good enough that it stays and holds its integrity. Right? There's days when it's like that. Everything on point, can't miss. Right? But then there are days when it seems like everything is off. People don't know how to navigate the days when everything is off. Jordan had off days. LeBron's had off days, right? They had to learn how to navigate those things, but they're still considered to be great, right? Wait, that's right. That's right.
I don't even know what's happening. She just started going nuts.
Hey, she heard that. She's saying amen. Okay? She don't look. Daisy don't even like around me, but she hearing that truth. That's all. Exactly.
I guess.
She said, "Don't talk mess about Jordan. Jordan didn't have no off days."
Jordan definitely had off days.
Yeah, he did.
I will say I agree with both of y'all. I think the problem we run into is that people do have off days. I think we've learned that there's still patience involved in the game. There was this black therapist I was listening to. I was to his little podcast or whatever, and he was talking about the big difference between this is kind of on subject, kind of off subject, but just stick with me.
Yeah, he
was like a lot that's happening that's different with this younger generation than with us. It was like, is there video games? It sounds wild. But he was like, when we were kids, we played games where you had 3 lives, no saves, and no guides. You just winged it and you failed and failed and failed, and you had to have patience and persevere past the problem. And it was like, in this new era, there are no lives. You can save it 1 billion times. And they have guides that actually just tell you what to do as you're playing the game. And they were like, that's not how the world works. The world worked more like how stuff was when we were younger, where it's like, you try, if you fail, you got to try it again. And I think that does come in where our stubbornness kicks in too, though. But I will say, when we were talking about, like Mitch, I think you brought it in to the conversation about like, when do I know when it's good for me to stop, right? And is that what you? I believe that's what you said. I don't think that it's a. I think that's a conversation between you and God where it goes. I think I'm done. But the problem I think we have is not talking to him. I think it's telling the other people we're done. That fear of disappointing them, because they probably be like, I thought you were the one, this, that, the other. It's like, nah, I ain't me, I'm out. I think that's where we have a lot of our problems. It's not about if we think we're done. It's, do we want other people to know we're done when they think that this is something we're supposed to do? That's why you have kids who go to college and they get degrees in something they don't care about because they don't want to disappoint their parents. Because their parents are like, I need you to go to school, get a degree. You could be the first one out of our family to get a degree. They go get a degree, and then they're back at home, living at home because they got a degree in something that don't work. I mean, I think there is a point where it's just where just the fear of disappointing someone else stops us from doing stuff that we want to do, that we might actually be told to do. Jesus suffered, but he knew what he was going to suffer through. If we suffer through something, we technically can opt out, which I think is happening more often than it used to. And I think that's starting to backfire because I think people are doing things they don't want to do to appease someone else. Like you said, CJ plays he plays the sax.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, well, I'm gonna teach you to write, I'm gonna teach you to take tackles and do all this football stuff. And he'd be like, I'm gonna do it because you're dad, but I don't want to do it.
So looking at it even further, right? When we look to Jesus, then the thing that we should assess about our lives in relationship to his is then it's not really a flip side. Yeah, I think it's one that we just need to expand on. He knew what was coming because of the route he was going to take. There are a lot of people doing things they don't want to do because the thing they want to do, they saw what it might take.
Right.
And they opted out of what their real purpose was to settle for something else. And now they have a different issue going on, which is I'm able to do this because I've trained to do it. I've learned how to do it. I'm doing it because X, Y, and Z. And I'm good at it because I know how to do it, right? But they're miserable because they took the easy route. When the thing they're really purposed to do got a whole lot of extra stuff. And they've said to themselves, this temporary pain, I'm not looking at it as temporary. I'm looking at what if, right? What if I don't? You see what I mean? What if it don't happen for me? You're already trying to opt out of something and you don't realize that scripture says, for these light afflictions are but for a moment. There's two elements in that text. These, and people will skip this part. They'll go, these afflictions. No. Text says these light afflictions, which means they're not going to last. And by comparison to what you're arriving to, they're going to be there, but it's only for what? A short period of time. People don't think that way because the pain feels like it's forever when it's only, I get a shot, right? The pinch is quick. You know what I mean? If I'm getting a vaccine, if someone's drawing blood, it's only for a moment of being uncomfortable to discover whether or not I'm still healthy. A momentary prick compared to a lifetime of regret for not taking a chance. So you got a whole lot of people in churches and organizations literally going through this every day. I remember just before me and Marissa got married, I'll never forget it. I was going through hell within myself because I was a young pastor trying to do new things, right? And I was so frustrated. I said, I need to just get a regular 9-to-5, high five, figures, and then move on. I got my degree. I got all the, I can't rationalize for me going through this much stress. Do you know what this woman said to me in her parents' house when we were working on invitation and all that stuff? You know what she said to me? She looked me square in the eye and said, you can't do that because you would be absolutely miserable because you would be doing what you're purposed to do. And she was absolutely right. It's hard going through things, but if you're doing what you're purposed to do and you understand your relationship with Jesus Christ, you already know you're going to face some stuff. And that piece has to come into play too. Do you have a relationship with Jesus enough to know that if I follow Christ, I am guaranteed to face some trouble if I'm going towards what I'm purposed to do, rather than settling over here and going through and being mad all the time because I didn't try.
Okay. I think that the trying isn't as much of the issue as having a community that also sees what's better for you. Because, like
Okay.
you said, you could, like, for example, if Marissa wasn't there, you could talk yourself out of anything. It's
Absolutely.
just you.
Absolutely.
So a lot of the problems we have is, like I said, I mean, I'm not trying to like counteract what you're saying. I agree with you.
Hmm.
Um, is if it's up to you, unless it's something that you're die hard about,
Right.
you're going to go into the most of the time you'll find a moment of weakness. We all have moments of weakness, and it's if we thrive in those moments because we just tired. Like I could sit there and be like, yeah, I could do this, I can do this, I can do this, and then you get one bad moment, and that one moment could change everything. But you gotta have somebody there that can be like, nah, you good, just relax, it's not that serious. I
Right.
did what that was saying. When
Hmm.
it comes to just him doing assignment, he'll freak out. It's like it's not that bad. One thing I've been trying to get him to understand is if you have an ailment, I don't want his. I keep trying to tell him I don't want your diagnosis to be who you are. Okay, and it's a hard thing for him to get past because I'm like, if you say you have a attention issue, put something in your room that triggers you to get back in, like to refocus you again. If that's you have an alarm that you have that automatically goes off every 5 minutes, so you know that you get distracted, you stay locked in on this thing you're not supposed to be locked in on. It goes off like, oh yeah, let me get back on it because I'm trying to get them to understand that no one, if you want something, you have to be the reason you want it, but sometimes you have to find another way to get around your problem. So, like you said, you wanted to quit. Your way around it was someone took you and pushed you to keep going.
Mm.
It could have been, oh well, how about we just go around the issue that's causing you a thing so we can keep going on the path. Just like if you're driving a car. If there's a car accident in front of you, detour. You can still get to where you're going, but you can't always let every single thing that comes in front of you to be like your biggest ailment that stops you and makes you go backwards. So like right now, that's what I've been trying to get my own kid to get through is just it's not just you. Like we're all in this boat together. You're not alone. But at the end of the day, I need you to get as far as you can without me with you. And then you have to be able to keep going when I'm not with you. And
Well, and experience is that like we all have different tolerance levels,
mhm.
I guess.
Yeah,
And so each one of us is going to have to build our own set of
tools,
disciplines. Yeah,
discipline,
yeah,
and tools.
like especially in a spiritual sense where like, where the tolerance is not like a tangible thing all the time, or what you're having to tolerate is not a tangible thing all the time. It, and this is, I'm really bad at this, like the intangible disciplines
Hmm.
uh, that then build endurance in a spiritual capacity. Um, because my tolerance level for stuff is very low. Like that's just me being honest. Like it's very low. Now it doesn't necessarily keep me from showing up, but it sometimes does keep me from pushing forward. You know what I mean? And so like, and again, I got imposter syndrome. So like but like my imposter syndrome is not going to be Sam's, like what'd you say, attention issue, or it's not going to be somebody else's other thing. And so like our willingness to say, again, like you said earlier, my race is different than your race, but at the end of the day, the goal is to finish the race,
Yes.
Right.
regardless of which race it is. Like if I blow a tire 400 meters into my 800, ultimately, I still want to finish that race, even if it's going to look ugly. Like for my
Right.
own self, I want to finish that race, even if it means sometimes someone has to come out the stands and help me get across the finish line. I want to finish that race because it's my race, and I don't want somebody else to say, well, we left him back there and we had to keep going without him. You know what I mean? But like the discipline that it takes to get yourself to say, hey, I might run into this thing and I have to endure in a spiritual sense is hard, but it's not.
It's not impossible.
What you say? Endurance is not quiet suffering; it's disciplined hope. That's what you have in the notes, and like and again, it's just that showing up every day, building on what you did yesterday, being able to recover from what you did yesterday that didn't work. You know what I mean? And it's like it's doing it in spite of all of the things in life and in the world that say you don't have the capability of finishing this race.
It's also realizing that maybe this isn't the right race I'm on. That's also a thing. Like I think that comes with the stubbornness I was saying earlier. It's like you could be on a race, you could be going crazy with it, and then you hit a wall, and you keep hitting the wall, and you keep hitting the wall. It's kind of like you said, like you have a problem, and I can't figure the problem out. So you have really like three options. You can ask somebody to help you get past the wall. That also removes the stubbornness and ego out of it. It's not my race. It's somebody helping. Now someone's helping me get to that point. Like you said, you just want to get to the end. I don't care how I get to the end, as long as I get to the end. But that also means I have to relinquish that idea that I got to do it on my own. Because if you keep the idea I got to do it on my own, then I'm not going to get there. Because if something happens, I can't do it alone anymore. Then you either have to have somebody help you. Somebody comes by, gives you some advice, and you just truly adhere to it, even if it's not exactly what they say, but it's something similar. And then the third is you just turn around and you find a new path. And you can't be mad that you didn't get to that point because you did everything you could to get there and it just didn't work. And that's also okay. But the hard part is admitting to yourself that it's okay. Like you said, we all had different paths.
We tell ourselves that we let God down. If you know what I mean, and like I don't,
Well, you
and
only
I don't
let
want to.
God down when you quit. You only let someone down when you quit. I mean, like
That's
I
fair.
told you, I'm a basketball nut. Kobe Bryant said, "Nothing. The only time you lose is when you stop trying." Period. So if you do something and it don't work, yeah, you can stop that, but that don't mean I'm not trying to still get to some point. It just might not be that way. You know what I'm saying? You got people graduating college at 80 years old because they was like, I'm gonna get a degree regardless. They not 20, but they did it. And I think that's the problem we run into is that, like you said, like how you said, well, I didn't feel like I failed God. Well, no, you failed when you stopped.
When
You
I
know what I'm
think we
saying?
have to build people to be able to say you are still on purpose, like you are still on your purpose, even if it's not in the way that you or society told you it had to be, because God's
Guilt.
purpose is so much more expansive than the boxes that we try to put ourselves into for our own comfort or for society's comfort. And God, I
Like
feel like
guilt
it's so
trips.
often trying to say like, come out of there because there's something so much bigger here for you.
Mhm. You, you
So,
you get guilt tripped. You guilt trip yourself, and people guilt trip you because they wanted something from you.
mhm.
Like if you was gonna go and there you was the greatest singer in the group, or you was bump that you LeBron James, and you go into the league. His boys like, yo, you go league. We in the we balling now. But if he didn't make the league, everybody like, man, you ain't worth it nothing, bro. Because you ain't get there. Because we was trying to ride your coattails. A lot of people just want to ride someone's coattail. A lot of people do. If you know what I'm saying, like if Charles got to a mega church, I guarantee you, people gonna be like, hey, you got anything I can do there? I see you over here rolling around with the Bentley. I see you got the crane carrying you around the altar. You know what I'm saying? With the red bottoms. I see. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong, and that's why as I'm landing, I want to land this plane.
Yeah.
From my personal experience. Okay, this week on Friday marks 28 years of ministry for me.
Woo-woo.
And wait to the actual day, because not just the date, but the actual day that I preached my first sermon was on Friday the 13th, back in 1998. Ain't that something? That was the actual date.
I'm pretty sure you got a lot of people say don't do that.
But wait, it wasn't my choice. It wasn't my choice. So my pastor got me up on Friday the 13th, the day before Valentine's Day, to preach. And 28 years later, I'm telling people that the most important ministry that I've done in 28 years, I'm doing right now. I had a church that had 250, 300 folk, right? And now I'm doing the most important ministry of my life at a church that is at minimum a fifth of that. And people would be like, well, why? I'd be like, because my purpose still remains. And it doesn't make a difference. And then to be now affirmed as a full elder in the United Methodist Church after being an ordained Baptist preacher, you understand what I'm saying? A lot of cats, in 2018, when I started pastoring at Wesley, they're like, well, why are you now U.M.C? Why all of a sudden you go on this route? I didn't tell them all the stuff that happened before that led to this, but now I'm doing the most effective ministry of my life in a totally different space, in a totally different vein. And so when you recognize what your purpose is, you don't limit your journey. And because of that, I know that the witnesses are watching. They're looking. They are witnessing. They're not watching. They are witnessing what I am doing. There's a difference. Watching means they're watching my every move. No, they're witnessing things unfold in my life now. And one day we're going to be set up to be the people that are witnessing those that come after us, how that thing unfolds. I want my life to unfold in a way that it can be a witness to somebody else, that you don't have to go the path of least resistance to get where you need to go, but that God can carry you through the places of challenge where you can thrive, grow, and go. And ultimately, that's how faith is demonstrated, and that's how faith is presented before the people. Not when it's convenient, not when it's easy, but when you really go for it all in the way that God wants you to do it. So thank you all for being on. Next Wednesday is Ash Wednesday. I'm looking to probably do a small Ash Wednesday setup, maybe not online per se, but I think we need to begin this new season of Lent in a way where we realize God has a lot for us to learn in the next 40 days leading up to the cross. So thank you all for being on. We'll see you Sunday. Come on out to the church. There's going to be the lots are clear. The streets will probably be a little more clear. We got parking we can use across the street. Don't let parking be an issue. Come on out, be a part, be in worship. I'd love to see you there. I've missed seeing y'all in person in the space. And trust me, we got a lot to say. In a short amount of time, God is still moving. So may the Lord bless you, keep you, is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you. See you real soon. Peace.
Peace.